Is it possible to have more than just one standard villain in your novel? Can you have more than just one standard antagonist? In this video, we're going to be looking at the 8 different types of antagonist you can have for your novel. And we're starting right now. Amateur writers feel as though there's only one type of bad guy for their novel. Someone who just wants something, someone who's evil, someone who's going to go after the protagonist. And your average writer might get bored of writing because they're just writing the standard antagonist over and over again. They want something different, something that's going to shake up their book, something that's going to make them want to keep on writing. Well, what different types of antagonists can you have for your novel? The first one are animals. Animals are very tricky because you can't reason with them. You can't give them money to go away. They're not after you for a personal reason. They're just doing what they do. Animals can be very big and powerful. If you're in the water, a shark could be coming after you, and you cannot reason with it. You cannot ask it to go away. This is why animals can be a very powerful antagonist in your novel, because they're strong, they get sharp teeth, they can come after you, but there's no reasoning with them. You can't ask them to go away. When we're outside of the city, when we're in the forest, we're lowered on the food chain. We're no longer dominant. As humans, we can function well in a city, but when we're outside in the wilderness, the animals have the upper advantage. And that is scary, because now all of a sudden you feel helpless. And if you put that in your novel, all of a sudden the reader's going to want to turn the page to find out what's going to happen next. The next type of antagonist you can have for your novel is yourself. The protagonist can be their own antagonist because they're questioning themselves, maybe insecurity, self-doubt, self-hatred. All of a sudden, when you battle a bad guy, you can shoot the bad guy and he dies and he goes away. But what happens when you yourself are your own antagonist? This would create for an interesting story because you cannot harm yourself, but you feel as though you're at war with yourself. Now all of a sudden, the reader is very curious as to how this problem is going to go away. Because for a standard novel, the good guy and the bad guy are two separate people. But if you make the protagonist their own worst enemy, and you make the protagonist and the antagonist the same person, this is going to make the reader want to keep on reading to find out how this is going to end. A third type of villain is something of a higher power, maybe God or the devil. Think of the novel The Exorcist. Here you have a young girl who is possessed by the devil. And you cannot harm the young girl because the devil would just leave her body and she would be dead. Now you have to figure out how on earth you're going to free this young girl from the devil without actually harming the young girl herself. So now you'll have to bring in a priest to perform an exorcism. Normally when we think of a bad guy, we think of another person. But what happens when that villain is a form of a higher power, be it God or the devil? How do you defeat God? How do you defeat the devil? By making your antagonist God or the devil, all of a sudden the reader is going to feel compelled. They want to know how on earth a regular everyday human being is going to defeat God or the devil in whatever the problem is. The next type of antagonist you can have is nature, be it a volcano, hurricane, tornado, earthquake. These are the types of things that can destroy your home, destroy your city. But how do you rationalize and deal with a hurricane or an earthquake? You can't talk to it. You can't bribe it. You can't make it see sense. It's just Mother Nature. An earthquake can destroy an entire city, but now that's a problem that you have to deal with. The reader is going to feel compelled to want to read on, to find out how on earth the protagonist is going to save his family from something of a hurricane or a tsunami or an earthquake. These are things that can destroy you, but you cannot reason with them, making for a compelling story that will make the reader want to read on to find out how this is going to end. How can the protagonist survive something that is simply Mother Nature? Because we all know how devastating Mother Nature can be with volcanoes, hurricanes, and earthquakes. So that would make for an interesting antagonist. The next one on the list is illness, having something wrong inside your body. This is something that can be frustrating. It can make you angry. It can make you feel scared. But normally when you fight an antagonist, it's another person standing in front of you. But if the antagonist is an illness within your body, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with a problem inside of your own body? This creates for an interesting story, one in which the reader would feel compelled to read on, because it's something that can happen to them, it's something that can happen to a family member. But normally, if you're in an action movie, you just shoot the bad guy. But what do you do if the illness is within your body? Now all of a sudden, it creates for a very interesting antagonist that you cannot reason with. The next one on the list is technology. What do you do if you invent a computer that's super advanced, and now all of a sudden that computer turns against you? That computer can talk. We can talk to computers today, but you can't reason with them. They don't feel emotion. If you design a computer to protect the planet, and all of a sudden that computer realizes that the problem with the Earth is humans, and that computer wants to get rid of all life, get rid of all of human life, the computer thinks it's doing what it's been programmed to do. But if you try to reason with it, try to make it laugh or cry or make it see reason, it doesn't understand. A robot cannot be reasoned with. You cannot bribe it. You cannot make it feel anything. But now this unstoppable robot that mankind has created is now after you. How do you stop a robot that cannot feel, but it is designed never to stop? It is following its own programming, just like Skynet did in Terminator movies, in which Skynet thought that human beings were evil, and now Skynet goes after humans. But you cannot talk or reason with Skynet because it doesn't feel. In 2001, The Space Odyssey, the HAL computer thought that humans were a problem and humans had to be eliminated. Now David, the last human on board, he had to figure out how to stop HAL when the computer itself was in full control of the spaceship. Now David had to figure out how to stop HAL by outsmarting it, even though HAL is super smart and super advanced, in control of a spaceship that's in outer space. You cannot reason with it, but yet it's out to get you, and you have to find a way of stopping it. The next one on the list is aliens. How do you deal with an alien when it's out to get you? What if it's out to destroy Earth? You cannot speak English to it. You can't speak any language. You can't speak its language. Maybe it doesn't care about communicating. Maybe the alien feels as though it's defending itself. There's so many things that we don't know about aliens. How do you stop them? What is their weakness? We don't know what hurts them. We don't know what to do to stop them. When you create an alien as your villain, all of a sudden the reader feels compelled to keep on reading because it's interesting. How are human beings going to figure out how to stop aliens? Because we know how to stop each other. But what do you do when that threat comes from another planet and that alien is bigger and stronger and smarter than you? And it appears to have no weakness, but yet it's coming for you. You have to figure out something quick, or that alien is going to come after you and it's going to win. Now the reader feels compelled because you have created suspense and tension within your novel in which the reader is going to want to keep turning the page to find out how on earth a human being is going to stop a bigger, stronger, smarter alien in which we have no idea what its weakness is. The next villain on your novel may not really be a villain, but it is life. Life itself, just like in Forrest Gump. Just trying to get through the day, trying to pay your bills, going to work and feeding your family. But yet you have all of the problems of the world, of wars, poverty, illness, getting fired from your job, recessions. Forrest Gump never really had a villain, not an actual person, like Darth Vader in Star Wars. But life itself was the villain in the Forrest Gump's movie, where Forrest Gump had to deal with all of the things that we all have to deal with, of just getting older, going to work, having to pay our bills, and having to keep our head above water in the crazy world that we live in. This makes for a very interesting antagonist, because with other antagonists, there's something physical in front of you. But what do you do when the antagonist is just life itself? How do you defeat an antagonist when it is life? You can't defeat life and then go on to the next day, because life just keeps going on. The more you write about life being a problem, the more the reader can relate. And it becomes very interesting, because now you have an antagonist that cannot be defeated, because there is no defeat in life. You have to keep going through life. And the reader is going to feel interested in how is this protagonist going to get through the day and get through their life, making for an interesting read with a brand new type of antagonist. Remember to make your antagonist bigger and stronger and smarter than your protagonist. If the antagonist is more fearing, regardless of whatever your antagonist is, if the reader fears for the protagonist's safety against the antagonist, they're going to want to read on. If the antagonist is weak or minor, you're not going to feel that need to keep reading. But if you make your antagonist big and strong, regardless of whatever it is, that's going to make the reader want to read on to find out how on earth this is going to be resolved. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my website, where I have a tremendous amount of information that will help you become the greatest writer you can be. In fact, I'm going to leave a link in the description down below, where you can visit my website right now and start learning. And if you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my next video on how I dare you to write a novel from the antagonist point of view. In fact, I'm going to leave a link to that video right here, and you can click on that video right now and start watching.